Traveling with the family. We rewarded good old Jason for being so serious and kind. Drinking trips are the best. When I called my husband, Dave, he was having a great time drinking at his destination. His cheerful attitude makes my blood boil. Despite this, Lisa was crying at home in the dark, holding the baby, all because of Dave and Jason. Lisa's hair was ruthlessly chopped off, and the left side of her head was almost completely shaved. She didn't even have eyebrows left. It seems that the two men punished her for having an affair. Chill out, Dave snapped. I couldn't believe that Jason, who seemed like a fine young man, could commit such a heinous act. I don't need this family, these memories, nothing at all. I've decided to leave Dave and Jason as well. I don't have any regrets or emotions left. I am Marilyn. I'm a housewife in my late 50s who finds my work to be my passion. Right now, I'm extremely elated. That's because my only daughter, Lisa, is getting married. Today, Lisa's boyfriend, Jason, came to greet us at our home. My husband and I, along with Lisa and Jason, sat facing each other. Jason sat straight like a student at a job interview, blinking a lot, clearly nervous. I fell for Lisa, my reliable senior, and pursued her relentlessly. I almost gave up after she turned down going to movies and theme parks. But bonding over drinks after overtime was what brought us closer. Stop it, that's embarrassing. You don't need to share that much. Jason scratched his head shyly. Really? Sorry, I thought I should tell your parents about our meeting. The two of them have a senior-junior relationship at work. Lisa is 4 years older than Jason and is turning 30 this year. It's one of those older wife stories. He seems like a kind-hearted man, so it might be a home where Lisa takes the lead. Jason must be very nervous. His hand was slightly trembling as he lifted his coffee cup. After drinking his coffee, Jason declared, I will, without a doubt, make Lisa happy. Jason, please take good care of Lisa. Yes, of course. I was relieved to see that my daughter's future husband seemed sincere. After seeing Lisa and Jason off at the front door, I returned to the room. While Jason had been nervously sitting, Dave was lying on the sofa fiddling with his phone. Throughout the greeting, Dave didn't utter a single word. He's usually not very talkative, but he could at least manage greetings like good morning. This time, he didn't even manage a yeah or an okay. He was just looking away with a stern face. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Jason was nervous because of Dave's attitude. During the greetings, I apologized to Jason, saying, he is just nervous. He's not angry, so don't worry about it. I've heard that fathers are often more shocked about their daughters' marriages than mothers. He looked angry, and I imagined he was sulking inside, thinking, I don't want to lose Lisa. It was kind of endearing. Jason seems like a good person. When I mentioned it, Dave grimaced and said, huh? He often stays quiet when in a bad mood, but rarely loses his temper. His sudden grumpy tone made me stiffen. That's a good person? You have no eye for people. He's just sucking up. Look, the booze he brought. It's my favorite. But it's expensive and I don't buy it often. Ah, I hate it. He thinks giving me expensive booze will make me happy. He probably researched Dave's favorite from Lisa to pick the perfect gift. I don't understand why there are complaints after receiving his favorite item. Same company as Lisa, huh? Must be that unnecessarily big, famous company. So what if it's a big corporation? Just because they pay well doesn't mean they can act all high and mighty. Showing off by buying expensive booze, so annoying. Maybe his outburst came from the complex feelings about his daughter's marriage? No, even if he feels sad about losing his daughter, this is too much. Let's stop. We don't know much about Jason yet, and it's not right to speak ill of him. Lisa chose him. Let's trust her. When I made it clear, Dave seemed to deflate. He slumped, looking unsure, and swallowed the words he wanted to say. This is Dave's usual demeanor. He couldn't find the right words and chose silence, but he expressed his mood by slamming doors and clicking his tongue. Occasionally he bursts out like this, but the moment I intervene calmly, Dave suddenly becomes quiet again. It's sad that I can't share the joy of Lisa's marriage with Dave. I remember a similar fuss when Lisa was about to go to college. What? You're going to college? It was May of Lisa's senior year of high school when he first mentioned it. Despite her attending supplemental classes and studying at home all the time, it seems he hadn't noticed. Why? There's no need to go to college, right? It costs money, doesn't it? Lisa explained her desire to pursue further education politely. But whether Dave was listening or not, he was looking in another direction and digging his pinky into his ear. As if to dismiss Lisa's passionate argument, he blew on his dirty fingertip after pulling it out of his ear. Wow, studying, huh? Rather than that, you should start working on site and learn the job. There are college grads my age at my company. But I don't get why they get promoted over me, who's been here longer. All that talk about studying, but colleges are just for playing around. What's so great about being a college grad? His prejudice was astounding. Yet, when I insisted that Lisa should go to college, Dave stayed quiet. Despite his obviously grumpy demeanor, Lisa got accepted into her first-choice college. Dave didn't even offer congratulations. His grumpy attacks don't bother me much anymore, they feel like a normal part of life. And now, this marriage thing has really gotten under his skin, surpassing his usual grumpiness and making him raise his voice. Jason seemed to be concerned about Dave's attitude. Despite his unpleasant demeanor, Jason kept inviting him out for drinks. At first, Dave was stubborn, but as he shared drinks with Jason, he gradually opened up. It was thanks to Jason's willingness to listen. That's why, Jason, I hate people with high education. I have more work experience, yet just because they have a degree, they climb over me. Isn't this world messed up? Yes, Dave. In our dining room, Dave was feeling good. When bringing snacks, I apologized to Jason, saying sorry, but he simply smiled and shook his head slightly. I have high hopes for you, Jason. Despite being a college grad, you're humble. Yeah, that's good. You don't hold a high position despite your education, huh? I see, you must really be incompetent at work, right? Since Dave started to belittle Jason, I hurried to stop him. Again, Jason smiled and said, "It's okay. Look, see? In our house, the wife bosses around. I failed at educating my wife. But there's still hope for you, Jason. Think of the wife as the husband's servant. Don't worry even if you can't achieve results at work. After all, no one else is going to judge us correctly. Rule your home like it's your kingdom. Got it? Ha ha ha. Yes, I understand, Dave. This is the first time I've seen Dave so badly drunk. He might be pleased because college graduates, whom he usually dislikes, are listening to him. Yet, no amount of flattery excuses his harsh words, but Jason kept lifting him up without losing his smile. What a remarkable person he is. He made an effort to get close to his fiancé's father. I was utterly reassured that Lisa's future would be bright. I was completely reassured that they would have a wonderful married life. Dave also approved, and Lisa and Jason got married without any issues. They now live in an apartment about 20 minutes away by train from our house. Soon after, Lisa became pregnant. Coming back home for the birth? No way. Kids are noisy. Lisa had asked to come home for the birth, but Dave flatly refused. It's her first birth, so she must be anxious. I'll cut back on work and support her properly. We won't bother you, please. We're family. Let's help each other. Just that was enough for Dave to pout and fall silent. It's as if I could hear his inner voice saying, I guess I have to do whatever you say. It's not that I want to ignore Dave's feelings. So, I explained how important postpartum support is, but since Dave wouldn't respond at all, I was at my wit's end. She'll be here the day after tomorrow, she'll be here tomorrow, I counted down to let Dave know. And somehow managed to arrange for Lisa to come home for the birth. And Lisa safely gave birth, now resting comfortably at our home. The first grandchild is a girl named Emily. Holding a newborn baby after a long time, she was soft and had a sweet scent. Even Dave couldn't help but smile at her cuteness. He doesn't know how to handle babies and doesn't fuss over her, but he pretends to pass by and sneaks peeks at Emily. After about a month of rest, the day for Lisa to return home arrived. Jason came to pick her up, and I felt a bit sad that this happy time was ending. Jason, it must have been hard on you being alone. Sorry for letting Lisa indulge in coming home. She's been lazing around here as if it's her job. When you get back home, she should make up for all the time she slacked off. Dave probably said that, trying to sound important, treating Jason almost like a subordinate. I was about to scold him, but Jason spoke first. Ha, understood, Dave. Jason seems to have gotten quite used to handling Dave. He agrees to keep the peace rather than cause a confrontation. I don't want to go back. Lisa muttered anxiously. It's unusual for her, who is normally so composed. What's wrong? Before Lisa could say anything, Jason put his arm around her shoulder. You shouldn't always rely on your mom. Lisa nodded, her face straining as if to hold back tears. Maybe she found it hard to leave the comfort of her parents' home. I won't be able to help as much from now on, but with Jason by her side, I shouldn't worry. I've significantly reduced my workload this past month. I made sure to come home early without overtime and even took a few days off. Caring for Emily was not tiring but rather energizing, filling me with motivation for work. At work, they were eager to send me on a business trip. I'm pumped to work hard so I can buy cute toys for my granddaughter. And a few days later, I returned home from the business trip. It's too late tonight, so I'll bring souvenirs to Lisa's house tomorrow and get to hold Emily. While I was excited about this plan, just as I was about to open the door to my house, I faintly heard a baby's cry. It was still a fragile, weak cry. I was happy thinking Lisa had come to our house, but suddenly, my heart felt uneasy. Something was off. Yes, our house was completely dark. When I opened the door, the crying became louder. There was no doubt about it, Emily was inside. Yet, why were there no lights on anywhere? Lisa, are you there? There was no response, only Emily's crying echoing through the house. I kicked off my shoes and hurried through the house. When I opened the living room door, I could vaguely see a figure in the dark. Tentatively, I turned on the light. Ah! I gasped and recoiled in shock. There was Lisa, holding Emily and shedding tears. But I couldn't recognize her at first. Because her hair was chopped haphazardly, and the left side of her head was shaved almost to baldness. Lisa? Are you okay? What happened? As I rushed over to her, I noticed she didn't even have eyebrows. I almost screamed again, but instead, I embraced her. Lisa's hoarse crying sounded directly in my ear, painfully squeezing my heart. I held Lisa for a long time. Finally, she whispered the dreadful reason. Dad did this to me. What? Why? No matter how moody or angry Dave got, he had never laid a hand on anyone. Could this be some mistake? But Lisa's next words only added to my confusion. Anne. Jason. What? That was impossible. Not the Jason I knew, who was the picture of a good young man. As I reeled in shock, Lisa's empty gaze met mine. In that moment, I was certain of the truth. Lisa wouldn't lie. But why? Lisa continued with an unbelievable explanation. I cheated, that's why. That can't be. I mean, actually. I truly believe in Lisa, yet she told a story that seemed unreal. Struggling to keep from losing it, I called Dave to verify the facts. Hello, hi there. Dave answered the phone cheerfully. It sounded noisy in the background, like he was out somewhere. Apparently, he was drinking. Where are you right now? I took a deep breath, trying to ask gently, but my tone came out harsh. However, Dave seemed too happily immersed in his drinking to care. On a family trip. Family trip with whom? With Jason. I rewarded that serious and kind Jason. A drinking trip, the best. You also act all important with your business trips. Probably just eating local delicacies, right? There's nothing like food and drink on a trip, huh? Despite Lisa trembling right next to me, Dave responded cheerily on the phone. He seemed to have forgotten that my business trip ended today. A drinking trip, just the two of you? What about Lisa and Emily? She's on house duty. Had a bit of a situation, you know. We needed her to cool off, so we just had to get out. Struggling to respond with a "I see you" was painful, and I moved the phone away from my ear. While anger overflowed within me, confronting this cheerful man now felt pointless. Men need a break too. It's unfair how women always use kids as an excuse to take time off. That's why I took a week's leave. Let the folks at work realize they can't manage without me. When you get home, expect a mess I didn't clean up. You think I'm a cleaning robot or something? In the background, someone cheered, "That's right." Regrettably, it was Jason's voice. Any faint hope that Jason was merely swept up by Dave was crushed. As I stood there dumbfounded after ending the call, Lisa said, "He wasn't a good person." Actually, it was Jason who. Tears overflowed from her eyes again. Even Emily, who had been falling asleep in my arms, began to fuss. I couldn't bear to see their sad tears any longer. Hurting you, and then going on a family trip. What family? What were those 30 years we spent with Dave, living as a family? A father who could so easily discard his own daughter after 30 years of care is no longer needed. To Lisa, still trembling, I asked quietly, "Do you need such a family? Should we just let them go?" As I spoke, 30 years of memories flashed before me. The day Lisa was born. The first time she called out "Daddy." Dave had been overjoyed, crying and jumping around. At least when Lisa was young, he seemed to truly love her. I almost convinced myself he wasn't all bad, but then I remembered how he'd get moody over trivial matters, again and again. He once left Lisa and me in a distant park because she called Mommy more often than Daddy, sulking abruptly. The bad memories outweigh the good by 100-fold. And now this treatment of Lisa. As a family member, Dave was no longer necessary. Lisa, still shaking, looked me in the eyes, her resolve clear. "I don't need him." Hearing her reply, I nodded deeply. We don't need them, not this family, not the memories, nothing. I resolved to discard Dave and even Jason. No remnants of attachment or affection remained. A week later, my phone was bombarded with calls from Dave. Out of annoyance, I finally answered. Bracing for a shout, I lightly covered my ear, but Dave's voice lacked its usual force, almost tentative. The house, it's not, here." When I didn't respond immediately, Dave continued, increasingly bewildered. I'm pretty sure I'm at the right place, but there's no house, you know?" "Right, Jason, there's no house, right?" "No, there isn't." He must have felt like he was in a dream. Anyone would be confused if something as fundamental as their home had vanished. When they returned to the familiar place where our house once stood, there was nothing left. No gate, no flower beds, not even the large house itself. Just a clean, empty plot of land. Ah, that plot, I sold it. You sold it? What do you mean, sold it? Dave's voice cracked, the reality hitting him. So overwhelmed by the situation, Dave seemed incapable of comprehending it. I sold it to the real estate agency. The house was getting old, and more importantly, I didn't want to live in a home soaked with memories of you. I thought I might as well tear it all down. It was in my name, so I did what I wanted with it. No way, you're kidding, right? Dave's deflated lament was nauseating. Ignored or yelled at either was unpleasant. But his weak, whiny demeanor was incredibly irritating. Dave always felt inferior to me, burdened by a sense of inadequacy. This was because I earned more than he did. I never blamed him or looked down on him for it, but it was always on his mind. No, but how can you just do this on your own? Why? I wonder why he is wondering why. He must know some reason for such drastic measures to be taken. It's about Lisa. Oh. He surely hadn't forgotten about Lisa while indulging himself for a week. No, you've got it wrong. It's Lisa's fault. She cheated, can you believe it? Cheating? Yes. That's why I cut her hair. Shaving is a form of penance, right? I figured if I made her look like that, no man would touch her. And she couldn't cheat. As if a mother with a newborn had time to cheat. But apparently, Jason had suspected her of infidelity. Jason abruptly interrupted the phone call. Listen, Marilyn. Lisa sometimes doesn't do any housework all day. Then what was she doing all day? That means she's with a man. Right, Dave. So the simplistic conclusion these two men reached was that she was cheating. Why couldn't they think of childcare as a reason for not being able to do housework? Clearly, they were completely disinterested in child rearing, leaving it all to the wife. There's evidence. I saw texts on Lisa's phone with a guy from work. Thanks for the baby gift. I confronted Lisa and she admitted it. The man even gave her a designer bib as a present. A deep relationship, exchanging gifts. I had already heard the circumstances from Lisa. A particularly close female colleague had brought gifts from several colleagues for the baby. Ordinary people wouldn't suspect foul play over baby bibs and socks. So I thought I'd get Dave to scold her, and to make her repent, he started cutting her hair. Classic Dave. Teaching the wife her place below her husband. Jason's tone was aggressive. Lisa didn't cheat. No, if a woman isn't taking care of the home, it means she's with a man. Was Jason always like this? I even hated myself for once believing he was a dependable, good young man. Then let me say this. If you suspect your partner of cheating, isn't it because you're doing it yourself? What? No, that's not. He was clearly flustered. I just heard from Lisa. You used her absence as an opportunity to bring women over to your house, didn't you? How did you know that? So it was true. You seem to take Lisa for granted, but we see right through your actions. I heard him gasp. Bringing different women to the house every day, making them do everything from housework to taking care of your needs, paying them money. Did you use those popular dating apps? You must have enjoyed feeling like a king. In fact, Lisa was aware of all Jason's betrayals. When she confronted him about his infidelity, he turned aggressive and harmed her. Wait, Jason was cheating? Despite Lisa's accusations, the foolish Dave had completely trusted Jason. Perhaps Dave favored Jason, the son-in-law who had grown close to him, over his own daughter. Are you kidding? Oh, so Jason cheated in retaliation because Lisa cheated? Jason fell silent. Even if he was influenced by Dave and his personality changed, it doesn't excuse the egregious mistakes he made. Since when does anyone destroy a house out of spite for infidelity? Dave still doesn't grasp the gravity of his sins. It's not just about the cheating. I'm angry because you hurt Lisa. Even after all this, Dave and Jason seemed nonchalant. What? She was injured? I don't remember cutting her ear with scissors. I used a hair clipper for the first time, it was quite easy. Maybe I could become a barber. The conversation was going nowhere. Lisa had to face them alone and ended up being hurt. She must have been terrified. She surely worried about Emily possibly being harmed too. Anyway, I've had enough of you, Dave. As you can see, you have no home to return to. Since you seem to prefer Jason over Lisa, let him take care of you. All your belongings are at Jason's place now. Of course, neither Lisa nor Emily is there. Upon my declaration, I heard two voices utter dismayed. Oh no. I had braced for a furious reaction, but perhaps the shock of coming home to find their house gone was too much to grasp immediately. After hanging up, it wasn't long before the two arrived at Jason's apartment. Lisa and I could monitor their actions and words in a certain way. Wow, a mountain of cardboard boxes. These are your things, right? To think Marilyn actually destroyed the house, she must be really angry. What are we going to do? It's really gone. I always knew my wife looked down on me. She may have an education and earn money, but as a wife, she's a failure. He continued to insult me even now. Wait, so Jason was cheating for real? And it wasn't Lisa's fault? I did give money to women for fun. Dave held his head in dismay. Why did it get out? If you're going to fool around, you have to do it smartly. It's annoying to have to apologize to Lisa now. I didn't cheat. I don't know anything is the only way to stick to it. Understood. Dave then slumped heavily into the sofa, his foot tapping nervously. Well, Lisa received gifts from a man too, and most of all, my wife destroyed the house. She's overwhelmingly at fault. Yes, we did nothing wrong. He might be pretending to be confident while panicking inside. Despite knowing it was futile to talk, I couldn't hold back. Who did you say did nothing wrong? Yikes. My voice suddenly echoing in the room made Dave scream and jump like a startled frog. I thought you might have some remorse, but it turns out you're only thinking about yourself. What? Where are you? Dave and Jason rushed together, holding hands and looking around. They kicked at the cardboard boxes, suspecting I might be hiding inside. As I said before, I can see everything you're doing. I've been watching the whole time, with this camera. A camera? The two searched the room and finally noticed the camera on the shelf. Lisa and I were watching them through a nursery camera we had set up inside the room, monitoring the video on our phones. We could even communicate through it. A hidden camera? You were spying on us? Don't mess with us. That's a lie. Jason's face, twisted in anger, filled the screen in close-up. As Lisa clung to me, she took a deep breath and declared resolutely. That's not eavesdropping. It's merely a camera to watch over the child. Eavesdropping is eavesdropping. How dare you, woman? Next time, shaving your head won't be enough, I'll make those eyes of yours useless. Confronted with this raging Jason, I was at a loss for words. The mask of the good young man was shattered completely. On the last day of her hometown visit, I remember Lisa's profile as she whispered, I don't want to go back. Apparently, after their marriage, Jason had changed. Although both Lisa and Jason worked, Jason slowly started to assert that housework was the woman's responsibility. And that a woman should serve her husband. Unexpectedly, the nanny camera captured Jason's abusive language and his infidelity. Oh, what a shock. From a safe place, Lisa maintained her composure, provoking Jason's nerves. Enraged, Jason grabbed the camera and slammed it onto the floor. The camera, now on the floor, captured Jason stomping furiously. Don't mess with me. How dare a woman try to trap me? Don't underestimate men. Despite graduating from a prestigious university and working for a significant company, Jason's behavior was childish. I thought he was just going along with Dave, but perhaps he genuinely resonated with his statements. Jason, do you have a complex about yourself? Is it because Lisa earns more as she is your senior? If so, instead of attacking others, you should enhance your skills and aim higher. It's because he lacks the ability, so he blusters, Lisa murmured. While stomping like a child in a tantrum, Jason continued to hurl vile words, denigrating Lisa's character. How dare a woman be so presumptuous? A barrage of unbearable abuse followed. After listening for several minutes, Lisa softly said, "This camera has a recording function, you know." Instantly, the verbal abuse stopped. The abusive language shifted to pained crying, "I didn't mean it like that. I love Lisa, so I was just being indulgent." He began to backtrack. There is nothing more nauseating than the tears of someone who had been arrogant just moments ago. Lisa and I felt sick and ended the call. Jason dragged Dave in front of the camera, and together, they started to apologize. An apology like a performance now is too late. From here on, this is what I heard from Lisa. The next day, Jason showed up to work with a haggard expression. It was his first day back after a week of leave, and the stares from his colleagues seemed to pierce through him. What's wrong? Are you worried about my swollen eyes? It looks a bit like conjunctivitis, doesn't it? His eyes were red and swollen from crying during yesterday's apology. Even as he tried to laugh it off, the cold stares from his colleagues continued. For some reason, he seemed crushed by an atmosphere filled with overt hostility. Then Lisa showed up. Though it wasn't strange for her to be there, as she was an employee of the same company, Jason looked as if he had seen a ghost. "Why are you here?" Jason screamed. "I came to thank everyone for the baby gifts." "What? Now? You don't have to do that now. Don't show your scary face here." It was precisely because of the timing that it mattered. Lisa was wearing a hat, but it was still obvious at a glance that her eyebrows and front hair were shaven. No one could fail to be shocked by her appearance. Lisa had only spoken modestly about Jason, so her colleagues were initially skeptical. But Jason's panicked response made them realize what the truth was. It's not true, I did nothing wrong. She was a bad wife, and I haven't done anything. I don't know anything. No matter how much he tried to dodge, he couldn't escape the truth. Afterwards, Lisa and Jason divorced. The reason for the divorce spread quickly through the company, and Jason ended up on tenterhooks. Even though he clung to his job at the large corporation, that too came to an end. Fired, terminated. No way. After enduring bullying from the entire company, terminated? Lisa had reported his abuse to the police. Jason was prosecuted at home and received a fine. He might have thought it wasn't a big deal because he didn't end up in prison, but a criminal record sticks regardless. He can't complain about being dismissed for misconduct. After being disconnected for a while due to the unplugged power cord, the nanny camera finally showed Jason's head. His hair was cleanly shaved, revealing a scalp that glistened blue. Can you see this? Lisa, I was wrong. I now have a criminal record and am unemployed. Are you satisfied now? As you can see, I've shaved my head. I am repentant. Lisa initiated the conversation without hesitation. If only we could turn back time. Lisa. Yes, you're right. Let's turn back time and start over. Lisa's hair had just grown enough to be styled into a very short cut, and her eyebrows had regrown. Her features are distinct, making her look like a cool older sister. Her expression has also become much brighter. That's impossible. Time doesn't rewind. And even if it somehow could, I'd go back to before I ever met you and make sure we never did. Lisa's voice no longer trembled. This will be our last conversation. I've already asked a lawyer to handle the rest. A lawyer? We're already divorced, what else is there? Child support for Emily. Jason, who had been kneeling, punched the floor. I'm unemployed, you know? I've been caught by the police, too. You're still going on with this? Inhuman. She immediately turned off the call. There was no time to listen to his abuse. As for Dave, the cause of all this turmoil, he's been resisting divorce from me, groveling. Dave was also dismissed from his long-term job due to his criminal record from assaulting Lisa. Now without a home or job, he likely doesn't want to lose his family as well. He's even ambushed me near my workplace. I got mad because Lisa earns more than me. I thought I'd discipline her with Jason, sort of teach her a lesson. I may have gone too far. But I meant no harm. It seems Lisa was attacked due to his inferiority complex. You meant no harm? That's right. I had no bad intentions. I'm shocked it's turned into such a big deal. Having the police involved in family matters is terrible. But I can forgive that. It's unclear why he thinks he's in a position to forgive. Hurting someone without malice is even more terrifying. You don't understand what you did wrong, so there's no chance for rehabilitation. I can't bear to be near such a dangerous person. I gotta protect my precious daughter and granddaughter from being harmed again. But Lisa is my precious daughter too. Are you trying to take her away from me unilaterally? We're family, aren't we? It's infuriating to hear him talk about family. Dave shamelessly clung to me. Where are you guys living now? Let's live together as a family again. I have nowhere to go. When I tried to return to my parents' house, they said, "You are no longer a son to us," and wouldn't even open the door. Did Lisa tell on me? Even my dad has abandoned me. So I have no one but you guys to rely on. Lisa had informed my in-laws herself about what happened. Her grandparents had been so shocked by her pitiable state that they became dizzy. Even if he is their biological son, they would not welcome Dave, the mastermind. Ultimately, Dave has no place to go. He pathetically settled in the empty lot where our house once stood, spending several days on the bare earth. Of course, he was reported as a suspicious person to the police and lost that spot too. In the end, Dave ended up at Jason's place. Though the living room camera had been unplugged, the bedroom camera was still connected. Hey, haven't you found a job yet? I guess people without a degree really are no good. What? You're just a temp worker. I get hired even with a record because I'm smart. Unlike someone who can't even get a temp job with a record. Such petty squabbling ensued. Despite their bickering, they surprisingly seemed to get along. Quietly, Lisa deleted the nanny camera app. There was no longer any interest in spying on their fate. It looks like they'll soon be unable to pay the rent on the apartment from just Jason's part-time job earnings. And they'll end up homeless together. Meanwhile, I live peacefully with Lisa and Emily. More than 6 months after the incident, Lisa's hair had grown enough to cover her ears. As her hair grew longer, her smile gradually returned to its former brightness. I was worried she might become withdrawn, but she didn't want to waste her maternity leave. She's been energetically going out with Emily, showing how resilient she has become. There was something to learn even from such a father. There are things more important than education or income. As Lisa stroked Emily's head, her face radiated genuine kindness. Opening her small mouth wide to reveal 2 little teeth, Emily smiled brightly. I want to protect this smile. Catching each other's eyes, Lisa and I surely shared the same sentiment. You're so inefficient. That's why it takes you forever to do the housework. I pretended not to hear and ignored him. Unfazed, Lucas carried on with his words. It's true what they say, women who quit after middle school are just plain dumb. You're an eyesore, so please just go somewhere else. Though I was infuriated, I chose to continue ignoring him. Finding it unamusing that I didn't react, Lucas came over to me deliberately to keep spewing insults. You've been listening all this while, right? I don't want to be around someone incompetent, so just disappear already. What do you mean all this while? Stop it with these insults. We're not children here. Seemingly pleased to finally get a reaction, Lucas smirked and said. Shut up. You're the lowest of the low, don't act like you're my mother. At those words, I realized there was no need to hold back anymore. That's right, your real mother is that woman, after all. What? My name is Olivia, and I'm a homemaker. I married my husband, Brandon, 7 years ago, and we've had a good relationship. However, there was one issue. It was Brandon's son, Lucas. Brandon had been divorced once, and custody was granted to him. The first time I met Lucas, he was 11 years old. Lucas, then in 5th grade, was initially shy, but he quickly warmed up to me. Seeing this, Brandon started to consider marriage seriously. We would go shopping together and took family trips, building a good relationship despite not being related by blood. Now, Lucas is 18 years old. He's in his senior year of high school and going through a difficult age. I was struggling with how to interact with Lucas. Back when Lucas was in middle school, he was quite smart and good-looking. Apparently, his good looks made him quite popular. Though he didn't report every detail to me, I noticed letters from girls, presumably admirers, carelessly left on his desk several times. During Valentine's, he would come home holding more chocolates than he could carry with both hands. On the day of his middle school graduation, Lucas invited several close friends over to our house after the ceremony. And they seemed to have a great time chatting. I decided to bring them some snacks and drinks on a tray, and as I approached Lucas's room to knock on the door. At that moment, the conversation I overheard made my body freeze in place. But that was cruel, man. How could you say such awful things? What are you talking about? Sophia confessed to you, right? I'm talking about that. Oh, that ugly girl with glasses? I was shocked to hear Lucas speak so dismissively about a girl's appearance. It was the first time I'd heard such vile words from him. How could she think she could confess to me with a face like that? She should know her place, he said. That's harsh. So, I told her to check herself in the mirror before confessing to someone like me, to save herself from further embarrassment. Seriously, man, you're so popular. How many girls confessed to you today? I remember up to about 6, but I stopped counting after that. Wow, that's amazing. Hearing them laugh about it filled me with dread. In front of us, Lucas had always been the perfect student. He had never once spoken ill of anyone. but I realized it was all an act. Behind his parents' backs, he was belittling women in such a derogatory manner. With resolve, I knocked on Lucas's door. I brought some snacks. "Can I come in?" Then the door opened. There was Lucas, smiling sweetly. "Thank you, Mom." As I handed the tray to Lucas, I struggled to give him as natural a smile as possible. Lucas had enrolled in a well-known high school in the area. He wants to work as a doctor in the future. For that reason, he had decided early on to attend a high school that offers a solid academic foundation for students aspiring to become doctors. As a result, Lucas passed the entrance exams with ease. On graduation day, I saw Lucas's true nature. Although I tried to remain calm, it seemed Lucas sensed the awkwardness. Up until then, he had played the role of the perfect student, but he decided to drop that act in front of me alone. He began to make dismissive remarks about women, regardless of my presence. One weekday evening, Lucas and I were in the living room. He was sitting on the sofa, fiddling with his phone in front of the TV broadcasting the evening news. I was preparing dinner while listening to the news in the background. Brandon was still hours away from coming home. Then, a news story was broadcast. It was about a woman who had been arrested for marriage fraud. Hearing the news, Lucas called out to me. "Mom, check out this news." "What's up?" I wiped my hands on my apron and moved closer to the TV, staring intently at the screen. Lucas snorted with a laugh and scoffed. "Marriage fraud, huh? Ridiculous. It's despicable to go after a man's money. It's a disgrace." While thinking his tone was sarcastic, I stared at the face of the woman who was the marriage scammer. Then, her real name was broadcasted. Having her real name exposed over such a scandal, her future looks bleak. But it's the price she pays for her foolishness. Regardless of the reason, it's not right to take someone else's money. "Well, then you're on the same level as this woman." "What?" Taken aback by his unexpected words, I could only manage a flustered reply. When I quickly turned towards Lucas, he was smirking at me. "You knew Dad was a senior executive at a large corporation when you suggested remarrying, right? Blinded by money, just like that woman. Weren't you?" I was shocked. When Lucas was young, I treated him as my own child, even though we were not related by blood. I thought he cared for me too. Even in middle school, I thought we had a good parent-child relationship. Yet, he believed I married Brandon for his money. That's not true. I love your dad and always wanted to be with him, and I've treated you as my own child. Easy to say. It's true. Your dad would only remarry someone who could get along with you. He can spot someone who's after his money a mile away. And he wouldn't want to be close to someone like that. You played it well, didn't you? Knowing Dad prioritizes me, you used me as leverage to marry up. You're just a femme fatale. Why think in such a twisted way? Because women deceive men and leech off them. You're living off Dad's money without working, just a freeloader. That's not true. There's a reason I'm a homemaker. Cutting off my words, Lucas spoke with increased intensity. You're no better than that marriage fraudster we just saw. With a huff, Lucas smugly walked to his room. This was the first time I had been directly targeted with such malice. He insulted me as a freeloader, thinking I married Brandon for his money. I never expected such harsh words from someone I raised as my own son. Stunned, I just stared blankly at the door Lucas had exited through. The news had long since switched topics, but I couldn't hear any of it. At dinner that day, I struggled with whether to tell Brandon about Lucas's verbal abuse. This isn't just a phase of rebellion. I believe it's a fundamental issue with Lucas's character. However, if I don't explain it well, there's a chance Lucas might misunderstand again. I can easily imagine him saying, "Women have it easy," thinking they can just rely on Dad to sort things out. Dumb people think they'll get help just by crying. These are the kinds of things I feared he would say. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to say anything to Brandon that day. Lucas seemed to understand this too. The three of us sitting at the dining table. It appeared no different than the day before. Except for Lucas occasionally casting condescending looks my way. The meal tasted bland that night. From then on, whenever it was just the two of us, Lucas made belittling comments. However, he never showed such behavior in front of Brandon. It's clear that he's targeting just me. He continues doing this, knowing that I won't talk back or tell Brandon. Lucas seems to hold typical misogynistic views. Being around someone with such beliefs could influence him, perhaps. However, Brandon does not look down on me for being a homemaker. Instead, he always expresses his gratitude, saying there is never a day off for housework. Thank you for keeping our home every day. He was far from a misogynist. It was puzzling where Lucas had picked up such outdated ideas. On one day off, with Brandon out, only Lucas and I were at home. Since the day he had hurled insults at me, I had tried to avoid being alone with him. I'll finish the chores quickly and go to the bedroom, I thought. As I was thinking this, Lucas, lounging on the sofa, started speaking loudly on purpose. You're so inefficient. That's why housework takes you forever. I pretended not to hear and ignored him. Unfazed, Lucas carried on with his words. It's true what they say, women who quit after middle school are just plain dumb. You're an eyesore, so please just go somewhere else. Though I was infuriated, I chose to continue ignoring him. Finding it unamusing that I didn't react, Lucas came over to me deliberately to keep spewing insults. You've been listening all this while, right? I don't want to be around someone incompetent, so just disappear already. I sighed deeply and looked at Lucas's face. What do you mean? Stop it with these insults. We're not children here. Seemingly pleased to finally get a reaction, Lucas smirked and said. Shut up. You're the lowest of the low, don't act like you're my mother. At those words, I realized there was no need to hold back anymore. That's right, your real mother is that woman, after all. What? No, never mind. Confused by my words, Lucas stood there dumbfounded. Although he might have wanted to know the reason, I simply said, you don't want to see my face anymore, right? And decided to leave the living room. Lucas's verbal abuse continued as usual. He must have been upset that I had stood up to him that day. Lucas's words became increasingly harsh over time. However, I continued to ignore him with a poker face. After all, I thought, there's no need to care about someone who would speak so cruelly to his mother, even if she is his stepmother. And those words. Don't act like you're a mom. You're the lowest of the low. It hurt me deeply. Being spoken to like that, I lost all desire to treat him as a mother would. At 18, he's practically an adult, and if he feels that way, I don't need to make any further effort. I decided to only provide the minimal necessary care. I never thought of myself as overprotective, and in front of Brandon, I'd continue playing the part of a good family. This incident made me realize that I tend to hold grudges. Lucas seemed displeased with my demeanor when we were alone. Perhaps he thought I ignored his insults because I was weak. Or maybe he thought I was appeasing him, worried that Brandon might leave me if I treated his son badly. However, me showing a bit of backbone might have made him feel like he was being looked down upon. Of course, I wasn't belittling him. But it seemed he didn't take it that way. In fact, I neither pushed him away nor did I coddle him. My attitude might have irked him even more. Hey. Lucas started to speak to me. I glanced at him sideways, wondering whether to ignore him. His demeanor wasn't the usual condescending one, nor was it the perfect student act he put on for Brandon. He looked serious. What did you mean by what you said before? What are you talking about? I genuinely didn't understand and asked Lucas to clarify. Thinking I was dodging the question, Lucas seemed a bit irritated and asked again. I mean, when you said your real mother is that woman. What was that about? Oh, that. I finally realized. He remembered something I had muttered. For a moment, I hesitated to tell the truth. The story about Lucas's real mother wasn't a pleasant one. Glancing at Lucas, I saw he was waiting for my words with a serious look. He was an adult now. Perhaps it was time to tell him the truth. I decided to tell him the facts. Do you remember the news we watched together? The one about the woman arrested for marriage fraud? Yeah, I remember. They showed her face and even broadcast her real name. What does that have to do with my mom? That woman is your real mother. What? Lucas stared at me, his eyes wide open. Initially, his face showed shock, but soon confusion and suspicion appeared in his eyes. It was clear he felt disbelief, not wanting to believe it. What are you saying? Are you trying to get back at me for all the awful things I've said? You really are a wicked woman. Panic was evident in Lucas's voice. I wish it were a lie, but it's the truth. Lucas's expression was one of sheer despair. He looked so defeated, as if he might collapse at any minute. When I saw that news, I recognized the woman's face. I was wondering who she was when they broadcast her name, and I thought she might be your real mom. Your dad also saw the news online and confirmed it, so there's no mistake. But why do you know what my real mother looks like? Have you actually met her? I had decided to answer all his questions truthfully when this conversation started. Lying here would only raise suspicions. I've never met her in person, but your father showed me photos and told me about her. He warned me to run if she ever showed up. Run? What do you mean by that? I relayed to Lucas the story Brandon had once told me. Even if it was a harsh reality for Lucas. The reason for the divorce was your real mother's bad relationships with men. Even when they were living together, she was indulging herself with money from various men. Brandon tried to intervene, but she wouldn't change her ways. Concerned about the bad influence on you, Brandon decided to divorce her and take you with him. Lucas seemed unable to speak from the shock. Before I knew it, he had collapsed to his knees. Because she seemed like someone who would do the unimaginable for money, there was a fear she might kidnap you to ask for money. That's why I was told to remember her face and to take you and run if anything happened. No. I'm so brilliant and my real mother was such a scoundrel? Muttering to himself, Lucas looked shattered, and seeing this, the seed of vengeance within me flared up. The woman you've constantly disparaged is your real mother. How does it feel to know you were born from such a woman? Hearing my cold words, Lucas looked at me. His expression mixed with shock, sadness, and various negative emotions. I was surprised that such harsh words came out of my mouth. Yet, my expression remained unchanged, icy as I looked down at Lucas kneeling before me. That day, Lucas stayed locked in his room and didn't come out. Brandon tried talking to him from outside the door, but got no response. Brandon asked about the situation, so I just told him that he was shocked to learn about his real mother. Brandon seemed to understand and simply responded, I see. Though my words might have been insufficient, they were not a lie. Serves him right. Dark feelings spread within me. From then on, Lucas became much quieter. Even when we were alone, he stopped hurling insults at me. Instead, he seemed to avoid being alone with me, spending more time in his room. The roles had reversed from before. I felt a mix of regret for possibly going too far and justification considering what I had endured. One day, while the three of us were having dinner, Lucas only smiled in response when Brandon spoke to him, otherwise he quietly ate his meal. He probably hasn't noticed the situation. Then, Brandon started talking to me. By the way, I met Robert today, the manager from the company you used to work for. Wow, it's been a while. Was he doing well? Yes, he seemed fine. He asked about you, so I told him you're doing well. As we chatted happily, Lucas looked puzzled and joined the conversation. What are you talking about? Mom, you used to work? Haven't I mentioned it? Your mother and I met through work. Really? Yes. Your mother was working for a company that did business with mine. She really came on strong. Stop, that's embarrassing. I stopped Brandon as he began to share our courtship story, and we both laughed again. Listening to us talk, Lucas looked unconvinced, his expression one of disbelief. He pressed on, appearing slightly panicked. But Dad's business partners were all major firms. There's no way Mom could have worked at such a company with just a middle school education. Now it was Brandon's turn to look puzzled. What are you talking about? Your mother is well educated. What? Lucas looked shocked, his eyes darting between Brandon and me. Your mother actually graduated from university. Well, she attended school in Germany for both high school and college. What? Germany. My parents decided to move to Germany for work when I was young. Although I could have stayed in the US given my age, I thought living abroad would be a valuable experience, especially since knowing German could be an advantage in my career. I still think it was a good experience. When the transfer to Germany was finalized, my parents apparently debated whether to take me with them. They considered whether my father should go alone, or if my mother and I should stay behind in the US. However, I spoke up about wanting to live in Germany as a family. Living abroad for an extended period isn't something you can do any day. Though leaving familiar surroundings was daunting, in retrospect, it was an invaluable experience. Being abroad as a family instead of studying alone must have been better, right? Absolutely. It was good not to feel all alone. I think I would have definitely become homesick if I had studied abroad by myself. Perhaps staying together as a family is what kept me from running away. Wait, so you can speak German? I haven't used it for a while, so I might not handle specialized topics, but I think I can manage simple everyday conversations. Once you reach university, the classes become more specialized, naturally filled with German jargon. While I may not remember everything, I could watch movies without subtitles. In fact, I also worked as an interpreter. I can speak a bit, but not as fluently as Olivia, so I was always a bit jealous. Should we make it a rule to speak only German at home? If we do that, our conversation might dry up real quick. Contrastingly, Lucas muttered to himself, looking a bit upset. I always thought Mom was just a middle school graduate. Why would you think that? Anyway, not going to high school isn't a bad thing. It's not always about academic degrees when it comes to working for others. Brandon chided Lucas with a tone of mild exasperation. But if you have such impressive academic credentials, why didn't you continue working? That's... As I hesitated on how to explain, Brandon started speaking, cutting me off. It's okay, I'll explain. Lucas, you know about your real mother already, right? Yes. Lucas nodded. He then cast his gaze down at the table. To be honest, her actions were quite a shock. There was a time I couldn't trust women anymore. Brandon began speaking slowly, choosing his words carefully. At first when I met him, he had just divorced and was visibly exhausted, both mentally and physically. He had bags under his eyes and had confided in struggling to soothe his son, who would often cry at night in the absence of his mother. However, after meeting Olivia, I was saved. She tried to understand my pain. Seeing you playing happily with Olivia, I realized you needed a mother. That's why I decided to remarry. Lucas remained silent, looking down. Brandon continued speaking. And it was me that asked her to become a homemaker. Really? Lucas looked up at Brandon, surprised. Brandon slightly lowered his shoulders but still smiled back at Lucas. I was resistant to the idea of taking away Olivia's career for my own selfish reasons. But I was anxious about whether she might leave us like your mother did, who was often out and had poor relations with men. I wanted a home where you and Olivia would greet me when I come home. Olivia agreed to my selfish request. Oh. Whether Lucas was confused knowing Brandon's true feelings, or shocked that the mother he had underestimated was actually a university graduate and had worked for a major company, was unclear from his expression. Honestly, marrying someone with a young child in elementary school was a big decision for Olivia. Brandon continued speaking. Whether Lucas was absorbing this was uncertain. And on top of that, being asked to quit her job after we got married. I'm truly grateful she came along with me. You should understand that too. Brandon gently patted Lucas's head, who remained looking down. Lucas usually shies away from touch, swatting hands away, but today he didn't resist. He kept looking down, his expression hidden from view. Weeks after the day I shared about my past, Brandon came home with a stern look. Lucas was in his room, and I was the only one in the living room. Hey, you're back. What's wrong? Did something happen? Why do you ask? Your forehead is wrinkled. I pointed to my own forehead and furrowed my brows, mimicking him. Brandon managed a slight smile at this, but his brows soon knitted back together. If it's something you can talk about, I'm here to listen. Thank you. He said just that and fell silent again. Wondering if it was best not to pry, I went about reheating dinner. After serving the warm meal, Brandon gestured for me to sit down. I obediently followed his request. "Will you listen?" He then began to speak in fits and starts. The next day, after dinner with the three of us, Lucas was about to return to his room when Brandon stopped him. "Lucas, there's something we need to discuss, sit down." Brandon called out to Lucas with a weighty voice. The atmosphere tensed up, different from his usual demeanor. Lucas, sensing something, silently took his seat. "Do you know a woman named Sophia?" Caught off guard by the abrupt question, Lucas paused to think before answering that he did not know her. Brandon sighed. "I see. You don't remember, then?" "Remember? Have I met this Sophia?" "Perhaps it's true that those who inflict pain soon forget their victims," Brandon said, his voice growing shaky. Lucas tried to read Brandon's expression, but Brandon covered his face with his hand, avoiding eye contact with Lucas. "I've been thinking since you asked, but I really have no idea who this Sophia is." Upon hearing Lucas's words, Brandon looked up. His eyes were filled with sadness. "Does it ring a bell if I say she confessed to you on the day of your middle school graduation?" Lucas's face turned pale instantly. "You look as if you're wondering how I know this." Lucas's gaze fell to his fists, clenched on the table. His hands appeared to be trembling slightly. "Sophia is my boss's daughter. She confessed to someone at her middle school graduation, was harshly rebuked, and was so hurt she couldn't leave her room for days. As I heard my boss speak, I thought it could be the same school as you. When I managed to get the name of that someone, it was you. But I won't listen to excuses." Brandon sharply interrupted, just as Lucas was about to defend himself. "I debated whether to discuss this with you, but first I wanted to consult your mother. It seems that on the day of the graduation, you invited friends over and made Sophia the butt of your jokes." Startled and sweating, Lucas turned abruptly and glared at me. "You wicked woman. Tattling on me. Don't mess with me." Lucas yelled at me. In that moment, his face changed from anger to fear as he turned to look at Brandon. Brandon's face was expressionless. "It's not like that, Dad." "What do you mean, it's not like that?" "To speak to Olivia with such harsh words. I'm deeply disappointed in you." Brandon sighed deeply and turned his face away from Lucas. It was a clear gesture of rejection. "Wait, listen to me. No matter how much you explain, I can't understand why you would insult women. Besides, shouldn't you be apologizing to your mother right now instead of making excuses to me?" Hearing this, Lucas stood up from his chair and came over to me to apologize. "I'm sorry, Mom. I won't say horrible things anymore. Please forgive me." Lucas apologized. He seemed to be waiting for a response. I slowly began to speak. "I'm sorry, but an apology prompted by someone else is hardly trustworthy." Lucas's posture remained unchanged. However, his fingers were tense, trembling slightly. He must have been angry that I wouldn't forgive him even after saying his apologies. "You've said terrible things to me many times when your dad wasn't around. I can't trust someone like that. You need to realize that what you've done deserves to be criticized. And feel ashamed for belittling others unnecessarily." With that, Brandon left the living room. I hesitated for a moment, wondering whether to follow him or stay. But I decided to follow Brandon. It was enough his father was criticizing him. If he felt he was being pitted by someone he had looked down on, Lucas's pride would be shattered. Leaving him alone was an act of kindness. I opened the living room door and glanced back at Lucas, who stood staring blankly at the ceiling. Lucas was in a rough state. Brandon had told him that once he graduated high school, he should move out of the house. Stand on your own as a man. He said so, but it was uncertain what Lucas might do in enragement. I understood that Brandon was trying to protect me from further harm. Lucas applied to university, but the shock of being disowned by his father resulted in poor grades. He didn't even pass the safety net universities. After high school, Lucas left home and was supposed to be preparing for exams. But he couldn't bring himself to attend prep school and mostly stayed shut in at home. Feeling somewhat guilty, I mentioned to Brandon, perhaps we were too harsh on him, to which he replied, "Lucas has always been able to do everything well and handle things smoothly, so he doesn't know frustration. The first time he faces it might be shocking enough to immobilize him, but those who experience failure can become kinder. It's part of a parent's duty to be strict sometimes," and he smiled at me. As for me, Brandon and I are living happily together. With Lucas gone, I found myself with more time alone, and Brandon suggested I could try working outside again. It was a delightful suggestion since I had always enjoyed working. However, I wanted to be home when Brandon returned. Perhaps working part-time would be a good balance. Thus, I found myself excited about starting a new phase of life. After all this time, I have to say it clearly. I'm fed up with both the old hag and the brat. Get out. Even though my husband was drunk, it was a terrible thing to say. My granddaughter, Emma, left the room crying. Emma. It was understandable since the drawing she had worked so hard on for her grandfather was discarded right in front of her. We might never be able to go back to how things were. Just as I thought this, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at this hour? Could it be Margaret? It's been a while. Sarah. Why are you here? I stood there, dumbfounded. Then my husband spoke again. I'm sick of old people like you. What do you mean? You two can't possibly be. My sister Sarah looked down at me with a malicious smile. Margaret. I'm dating your husband. What? That's right. I'm sorry. I'm going to remarry Sarah. I couldn't comprehend the sudden declaration, and I felt cold sweat might break out all over my body. Before I knew it, my hands and feet were trembling. I'm sorry. I'll take your husband, Margaret. Sarah watched me tremble in shock for a while as if it amused her. I couldn't stay like this. I will have my revenge against my husband and sister. This is where my grandchild's and my revenge began. My name is Margaret Hamilton, I'm 60 years old. I live quietly with my recently retired husband, Frank, a little away from the heart of New York in a peaceful residential area. I used to run a flower arrangement class there, making use of my qualifications. It's often said that many couples grow apart after retirement, but it didn't seem to be a problem in our house. Although it was a bit bothersome that my husband started seeking more attention from me than during his working days. At first, I was puzzled, but maybe that was also something fresh and possibly good. He was enjoying his hobbies such as chorus and chess, leisurely, and I genuinely enjoyed interacting with the friends I met in my class. Thus, walking at our own pace into this second phase of life wasn't bad. Just as I started to feel this way, an event that would change our lives occurred. What? Michael had an accident. That can't be. Could it be a mistake? My hand trembled as I held the receiver, my mind going blank. I couldn't believe it. My husband also seemed unable to grasp the situation, standing there in shock. 3 days ago, our son and his family had taken advantage of Labor Day to go on a trip with their daughter, just the three of them. The accident happened on their way back from a beautiful autumnal mountain destination in the north. It was unbelievable. Please, God, let them be safe. Just spare their lives. With a prayerful heart, we hurried from our home to a hospital in the northeastern region. But what we found there were the lifeless bodies of our son and his wife, already cold. It can't be true. No. Michael. Michael, wake up. The cause of the accident was apparently a large truck whose driver had fallen asleep and veered into the oncoming lane. The head-on collision had completely wrecked the car, the front of the vehicle was unrecognizably mangled. Both our son, Michael, and his wife, Erica, were reported to have died almost instantly. Michael, who had been busy every day working tirelessly as a salesperson. Despite the doctor's desperate efforts, neither my son nor his wife could be saved. The cold hospital corridor echoed with our voiceless screams and sobs. Normally strong, my husband cried out loudly this time, overwhelmed by grief. Our only son, Michael, was just 39 years old at the time. The only survivor was our granddaughter, Emma. God has taken our only son from us. The only remaining family member, our granddaughter, Emma, sat in shock, her face pale as if frozen, not moving a muscle. Through the window swayed by the cold autumn wind, heavy rain clouds approached. Before I knew it, the year had turned and it was already February. Half a year had passed since the day that changed everything. In this half year, we managed to get through our son and his wife's funeral and race through life in a daze, without even time to grieve. And so, we took in our granddaughter, Emma, now an orphan, and started raising her. We, as a couple, were doing our best to get our new life on track. Half a year had passed, but our time seemed to have stopped on that day. While I busily managed household chores and struggled with the unexpected return to parenting, my husband stared blankly out the window. At that moment, I still hadn't realized how much the accident had changed him. That day, when Emma didn't come home on time, I peeked outside through the back door. The outside air was as cold as ice. Was it track and field practice today? Watching my breath condense in the cold air, I was about to close the door when Emma returned. "I'm home." "Hi, it must have been cold, huh? Come in." Since her parents' death, Emma had closed herself off and barely spoke to us. But recently, she had started to show expressions typical of a middle schooler again. It will still take some time before she regains her true smile. She seemed to be making an effort in her own way. Although it was awkward, Emma was earnestly trying to fit into this new family dynamic. Emma was still 14 years old. She was in her second year of middle school. Losing both parents at once during such a sensitive period and being forced to change schools after being taken in by her grandparents. Emma was facing immense challenges. Thinking about Emma's feelings made my heart feel like it was going to burst. But while I was desperately trying to heal Emma's heart, my husband's remained vacant. "Dear, Emma is back." "Ah." With that short response, he shifted his gaze back to the television. Just when she's starting to open up to us a little. My husband had always enjoyed drinking, but since Michael's death, it was clear his drinking had increased significantly. It might be unavoidable to overlook certain things, given the heartache of losing our only son. With that thought, I tried to ignore minor issues. But after dinner, Emma briskly cleared the dishes and stood at the sink to help with washing up. "Grandma, today my drawing got recognized at school," she said. "Really? That's wonderful." It turns out a landscape Emma drew at the end of the year had been selected for the cover of the middle school's centennial commemorative booklet. I'm so happy my artwork is on the cover. It was the first genuine smile Emma had shown us since she came to live with us. "Grandpa, listen. Emma, you should focus more on your studies rather than drawing," he interrupted. "Dear. It's true, isn't it?" Indeed, Emma had never been good at studying. She hadn't failed, but her grades in mathematics and Spanish were dismal at the end-of-year exams. As a result, I had to spend many late nights helping Emma with her studies. Starting parenting over at this stage in our lives was challenging. Even though we were blood-related grandparents, it was never easy. If anything, conflicts seemed more frequent. My husband's attitude towards Emma did not improve afterward. It was as if he was taking out the loss of our son on her, being cold and detached. Since the accident, I had become concerned about my increasingly reclusive and heavy-drinking husband. Late at night, after Emma had gone to sleep, I decided to confront him. What was that attitude towards Emma earlier? What about it? He was still in the kitchen, calling it a nightcap, drinking whiskey. "She's finally starting to brighten up a bit, going to school properly, right? So what? Going to school is the least she should be doing." Even so. Saying study more like that. You didn't have to say it like that. What about you? You've been all over Emma lately. She can study on her own, can't she? That child may struggle with studies, but she excels in art and sports. Isn't that enough? Michael was like me, good at both studies and sports. Emma doesn't resemble her father at all. Stop it. No matter what you say, Michael isn't coming back. All we can do now is raise Emma properly. Please, let's cooperate. Look, Margaret. You may not understand, but I had my second life plans. But now. Frank trailed off, unsure of what to say next. Never mind, it's over. Originally, Emma was supposed to be a precious treasure for us. But the death of their son and daughter-in-law cast a dark shadow over the relationship between us and our granddaughter. I quietly went to check on Emma in her room. "Sorry, Emma." A single tear rolled down her cheek as she breathed quietly in her sleep. I gently wiped away the tear and silently returned to my bedroom. That night, my husband staggered home drunk very late. "Hey, I'm home. Where have you been until this late? Does it matter?" "It's none of your business." In recent months, under the guise of a stress relief, my husband had been drinking out every night. Naturally, conflicts and arguments within the home had increased. My husband has become like a completely different person lately. He staggered into the living room and sloppily slumped onto the sofa, demanding, "Bring me some water." I handed him a glass of water with a resigned expression. He drank the water greedily and then said something unexpected. "Today, I met your sister at the bar." "What?" "Sarah." I felt an uneasy stirring in my chest. "Sarah and I are sisters, but we have different mothers, we're half-siblings. There's a significant age gap between us. Sarah, the child of my father's second wife, is 13 years younger than me, at 47. Though she is single, she maintains a youthful beauty and is often called a ageless beauty due to her looks. A few years ago, she launched a successful cosmetics brand called Jupiter and even got featured in magazines. While it can't be said that my sister isn't beautiful, she's what you might call an evil woman, using men to climb her way up. Because of this, she's had endless troubles with men since her youth. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit envious of her flamboyant social life. Fortunately, my stepmother, who was her biological mother, raised us without favoritism. Maybe that's why I was able to avoid feeling inferior to my stunning sister. It's hard to believe that the cosmetics brand Sarah runs was started with her own funds alone. I always suspected she charmed some wealthy man into becoming her patron and funding it. "Hey, Margaret, have you looked in the mirror lately?" Casually, I glanced at the mirror hanging on the living room wall. Reflected, there was a face far more aged than I had imagined. "Is that me?" I reflexively looked away from the mirror. I couldn't bear to look directly at it. This was the reality. There I was, worn out by childcare, housework, and stress. I felt like I understood what my husband was implying. "Sarah and you are so different. Are you really sisters?" His eyes, slightly mocking and clouded with alcohol, stung me. I was shaking with anger, unable to find the words to respond. "Yes, so what? Just saying, your sister remains beautiful with age, unlike someone." Overwhelmed with intense anger and turmoil, I felt dizzy. Managing to suppress the urge to scream, I slammed the door forcefully and left the room. The painful past of being compared to and belittled next to my sister resurfaced. I never thought I would face such treatment from my husband at this age. I closed the door behind me and quietly let out a sob. "Grandma." Emma must have heard our argument. From then on, the relationship between my husband and me rapidly cooled. Far from showing remorse, he became increasingly arrogant towards Emma and me. His bad drinking habits persisted, and he even began staying out until morning frequently. Frank had his fair share of relationships with women before we married, and it seemed he had dated several others. I was worried, but there was nothing I could do. Lately, he continued to go out drinking nightly, and I no longer tried to caution him about it. He doesn't listen to anything I say anymore. While I had resigned myself to some extent, I still harbored a faint hope he might return to the kind man he once was. I can't be zoning out like this. Startled, I snapped back to the present. "Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate your class today," said one of my flower arrangement students cheerfully as I smiled and saw them to the door. The studio had been closed for a while after my son and his wife died, but upon reopening, the students quickly returned. Now, conversations with my husband, who no longer paid any attention to the family, were virtually non-existent. He barely spoke to Emma either. The room was filled with colorful flowers, and a sweet scent lingered in the air of the classroom. The interaction with my students was my only joy and salvation for my spirit. After everyone had left, I began cleaning up the tools in the now empty classroom. The deep indigo vase was my favorite. It was something my husband had bought for me a long time ago from a glassmaker in Oregon. I picked a deep red rose from the table and stared at it intently. The luxurious rose flower illuminated by the setting sun through the window. Its resplendent appearance reminded me of my sister, whom my husband had recently met. His words crossed my mind again. Have you looked in the mirror lately? A woman's worth isn't determined solely by her external appearance. But do I have anything that surpasses Sarah now? Grandma. I was suddenly brought back to the present by the call. Today was my husband's birthday. I remembered that I had planned to make his favorite steak for dinner. I turned hurriedly to the source of the voice. Emma had drawn something for Frank. Thank you. I'm sure Grandpa will come home early today, I said, though I tried calling him with no response. It's a special day, and yet. That night, my husband finally came home after 10 p.m. As he passed through the hallway, I could smell alcohol and tobacco on him. He seemed to have been drinking again. Emma, Grandpa's home, I called out to her. Emma was holding something like a piece of drawing paper. Happy birthday, Grandpa. I made this drawing for you. Please take it if you like, she said. It was my husband's 65th birthday. This is supposed to be me? Doesn't look like me at all. Emma, you really do waste your time on useless things, Frank commented, crumpling up the portrait she had drawn and throwing it into the trash. How could you do that? Emma went to all that trouble to draw it for you, I exclaimed. After all this time, I have to say it clearly. I'm fed up with both the old hag and the brat. Get out. Though he was drunk, those were harsh words. Emma left the scene in tears. Emma. It might be that we can never go back. Just as I thought this. The doorbell rang. Who could it be at this hour? Could it be Margaret, long time no see. Sarah. What are you doing here? I stood frozen in shock. Then my husband spoke again. I'm fed up with an old woman like you. What do you mean? You two can't possibly be. Sarah looked down on me with a malicious smile. Margaret, I'm dating your husband now, she said. What did you just say? That's the situation. I'm sorry, but I am going to marry Sarah, my husband declared suddenly. I couldn't comprehend the sudden announcement, and cold sweat seemed to break out all over my body. Before I knew it, my hands and feet were trembling. I'm sorry, but I'll be taking your husband, Sarah said as she watched me shaking in shock with a sort of amusement. Sarah, do you understand what you're saying? I'm telling the truth, she said with a thin smile as she stood up. That's the situation. So, I'll leave you for now. That night, I couldn't sleep at all, shocked beyond the ability to even cry. For the first time, I realized that humans can be too shocked to weep. Less than a year after my son, Michael's death, Emma and I were plunged back into despair. 2 months later, my husband, Frank, and I officially divorced. It was an all too abrupt end to our married life. After 37 years of marriage, having wed Frank at the age of 24, the divorce was something I had never anticipated. Afterward, relying on relatives, I took Emma and we left the house. Everything precious seemed to slip through my palms. Overwhelmed by a sense of powerlessness, I sought refuge with my uncle's family. Spring was approaching. The early spring breeze gently swept across the meadows. My uncle's ancestral home was located in a rural area along the mid-Atlantic coast. The water in the surrounding fields warmed up, and fresh green leaves sprouted on the nearby gentle hills. Despite the serene sunshine of the burgeoning spring, my heart remained heavy. I had just learned that Frank and Sarah had officially remarried. Grandma, what's wrong? It's nothing, I replied as I packed Alstroemeria flowers into a basket. I was preparing flowers to be sent to a local fresh market. We were staying with my uncle, Tyler Harper, who owned the home. The Harper family owned several forests and fields in the region and grew flowers for shipment to the metropolitan area. And I had been allowed to work in their flower cultivation fields. The people of the Harper family, including Tyler, his wife, and my cousin's family, were all kind. I love flowers. Working in the fields doesn't bother me at all. But, Emma, I'm sorry we had to move so often, I said. This was the second time Emma had to move schools since her parents' accident. I'm sorry about Grandpa, but I think it's better this way, she reassured me. This region was warm and comfortable to live in. Close to both the sea and mountains, the scenic beauty of the area surprisingly appealed to Emma. She became more active in painting than ever, joined the art extracurricular activities at her new school, and started attending painting classes. Although I plan to eventually reopen my flower arrangement classes and establish myself independently. From the death of my son and his wife, to my husband's infidelity, the discord with my sister, and then the divorce. So much had happened in quick succession, and I still hadn't managed to sort it all out within myself. Grandma, there's something I want to talk to you about, Emma said. What is it? About Sarah. Look at this. She showed me her phone screen. Sarah. I furrowed my brows. Looking at the LCD screen, I saw several familiar names flashing. This is... The name Sarah Harper and the company she runs, Jupiter Cosmetics, were mentioned. It was reported that the face wash sold by Jupiter Cosmetics contained fraudulent ingredients. The products from Jupiter contained ingredients that, though now strictly regulated in terms of allowable amounts, were used far beyond the legal limits. Many people developed severe allergic reactions, with their faces swelling or even experiencing anaphylactic shocks. The information posted on the internet quickly spread far and wide. Emma seemed to have noticed it through a retweet from a friend who used these cosmetics. Sarah is probably going to face a lot of trouble now. Grandpa too. Yes. They might come to you for help. It's okay, Emma. You don't have to worry about that. Those people are now leading lives that have nothing to do with us anymore. Yeah, I understand. I made up my mind firmly. A few days later, Sarah's company's scandal was already being reported on TV. According to the news, there were about 300 victims, and a group of lawyers was demanding compensation in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Margaret, when your own sister is on the news like that, you must be restless. I've already caused so much trouble for you with Sarah and Frank's issues. We should have nothing to do with those kids anymore. They are a disgrace to the Harper family. Yes. And who knows what kind of bad luck they might bring in the future. Tyler made sure that Sarah and the others would not come near the main house, instructing all household members to be cautious. There was no way he could feel good about Sarah, who had snatched away her own sister's husband and then caused a national scandal. My feelings were complex. My mind was uneasy and restless. But my fears were soon realized. A few days later, I received a call from an unregistered number. Hello, Margaret? Shockingly, it wasn't Sarah, but my ex-husband who called. What do you want now? Don't be so cold. I need a favor. No. Just hear me out. I officially registered my marriage with Sarah recently. And I also took on a director's role at a Jupiter. Then this mess happened. So, what about it? I need you to lend me some money. Your father was quite wealthy, wasn't he? Didn't he leave you a hefty inheritance when he passed away? Are you kidding me? After everything, you're going to drain my father's inheritance too? Don't ever contact me again. The audacity of a man who had abandoned his family for his wife's sister, now trying to tap into his ex-wife's inheritance. I was seething with rage. I struggled to keep my composure so that Emma wouldn't notice. Grandma, I'm home. Emma had returned home. Perhaps there was track practice today. Under the early summer sun, Emma's face was slightly sunburned. What's wrong? What do you mean, what's wrong? Because, Grandma, you're crying. Startled, I touched my face and realized that several tears were streaming down my cheeks. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Emma. I didn't mean to involve you in this, really I'm sorry. Unable to stop the tears, I covered my face with my hands and sobbed. Then a gentle hand landed on my head. It was Emma's hand. Grandma, don't cry. I could see Emma looking into my face with concern. The dark emotions I had been suppressing all this time suddenly overflowed and couldn't be stopped. During that time, Emma kept patting my head, comforting me with a there. Grandma, you've done nothing wrong. I couldn't reply. Is that really true? If only I had paid more attention to my husband after Michael passed away. If only I had been more empathetic towards him. If only Michael and his group hadn't met with that accident. Would our fate have changed? But now, everything was irretrievably lost. Grandma, let's be happy together. Can we really be happy? If you wish for it, surely we can. Yes, you're right. I'll be with you, so it's going to be all right. Ah, my sweetheart. I burst into tears of laughter. It was then that I truly felt grateful from the bottom of my heart that Emma had survived. That night, I made a decision. I decided to finally demand child support from Frank. Emma, I need to talk to you about something. What is it? I'm thinking of starting a flower arrangement class again. What do you think? Emma's face brightened up instantly. I think that's great. I totally agree. I believed that securing a substantial amount of money was absolutely necessary to properly raise Emma. Emma happily accepted the suggestion with a smile. The Harper family members are all kind. I never felt uncomfortable here, but I was beginning to think about starting a new life just with Emma. Taking care of the many beautiful flowers in this floral nursery deepened my love for them. Flower arrangement was one of the hobbies that my and Sarah's mother had made us learn. Sarah gave up halfway, but I loved flowers, so I continued. A few weeks later, Sarah called us. Margaret, what's this about? You demand child support from Frank out of the blue? There's nothing much to it. It's simply my right, considering what I've endured from you guys. You're the one to be blamed because you got your husband stolen. It's not my fault. You always say things that don't add up. That's why I hate you. You always act like you're the wise and good one, always liked by everyone. I hate that about you. You felt that way? I was surprised. You always had people around you, cherished by Dad and Mom. You could never understand how I felt. Sarah. You know, right? My company is finished now. We've been sued by a group of victims, and the damages have skyrocketed to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now, on top of that, you demand child support from Frank? Don't joke with us. Sarah. I've always felt inferior to you as well. We were the same. It's sad that I only realize it now. But I can't back down this time. It's also for Frank's sake. Michael, please watch over us from heaven. I promise to raise your daughter well. Reconciling with my sister and ex-husband during their lifetimes might be difficult. But that's all right. I've decided to live by my own beliefs. I am determined to find happiness with Emma. The following week, surprisingly, 2 pieces of good news arrived from school. First, Emma had achieved great results in track and field, qualifying for the national championships in hurdles. And the other was, really? You're painting? Yes. Grandma, I get to go to the Netherlands. At first, I couldn't believe my ears. Emma's painting had won a competition. Emma had entered a summer painting contest organized by a leading domestic art supply company. Her painting won the grand prize and would be exhibited in a prestigious museum in the Netherlands for a limited time. In addition to the prize money, travel and accommodation expenses were provided. This news was published on the cultural page of the newspaper, and it caught Frank's attention. Soon after, a call came to us again. Hello, is that Emma? It's been a while. How are you doing? I'm fine. I saw the newspaper. It's amazing, winning such an award. Make sure to show it to Mayor too. I can't show it to you. It's going to be displayed overseas. I heard there was also some prize money. Could you get your grandma? There's something I'd like to discuss. I can't do that. Grandma said she absolutely won't give you the prize money. Anne. I'm not really concerned about the prize money. The truth was, Frank had unexpectedly visited us a few days earlier, attempting to reconcile with me. Given the timing, it was not unreasonable to suspect he was after the prize money. I had no intention whatsoever of getting back together with him. By this time, he was completely devastated and worn out. The financial losses from Sarah's cosmetics business, compensation for a class action lawsuit, and child support for Emma had driven them nearly insane. Or perhaps they had already lost their minds. Sarah's beauty had faded, and she looked much older than her age. No longer concerned about appearances or makeup, she was on the brink of madness. The affair that had stolen her sister's husband had exacted a higher toll than imagined. After scrambling for money, they ended up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Frank and Sarah were both physically and mentally exhausted. Their marriage had been troubled from the start and was now on the verge of collapse. If I had known it would come to this, I would never have married you. You're useless. What did you say? It was you who seduced me first. I'm the one who was deceived. Give me back my life. At that moment, Frank realized that Sarah had never really loved him. Aware that her cosmetics business was faltering, Sarah had quickly remarried to find a host she could leech off. He finally understood that she had manipulated him and used him completely. And he also realized that this affair had also been part of her revenge against me. But now, it was all too late. Money, home, family, love, and even memories. Except for one thing, a new wife who had become reckless and was on the verge of madness. Later, I heard through the grapevine that Frank and Sarah had started working at a hotel in the far north, living in. During his prime, he had held a respectable position. And Sarah, formerly the head of a cosmetics company, must have been struggling greatly in her new environment. But now, my life was free from those two. I have no desire to interfere now, nor do I want any from them. There was just one thing that nagged at me. The hotel was very close to the last place Michael and his family visited before the accident. The leaves must be at their peak color now. Perhaps that person, for Michael's memorial? It was just speculation. But Michael was our irreplaceable only son. That much was true. Looking back, it all started with that accident. No one to blame, no one could be blamed. It was just a painful memory filled with regret and sorrow. Thus, I silently bid farewell in my heart to my ex-husband and sister who had betrayed me. And as the seasons turned, we faced the second spring since the accident. With the funds we had gathered, Emma and I bought a house not far from the Harper family, starting our new life. We moved close enough so Emma wouldn't have to transfer schools, not far from my uncle's house. There, I finally restarted the flower arrangement class. It was near the station and in a good location. The flyer Emma designed for, now recruiting students, was well received, and many students quickly gathered. Grandma, the painting displayed in the museum has returned. In Emma's hands was a painting of Michael, his wife, Erica, and Emma herself gazing at a field of flowers illuminated by the sunset. No matter how many times I look at it, it's a beautiful painting. I'm sure Michael and Erica are also happy. Yeah, I think so too. We smiled at each other. What do you think about displaying this painting in the flower arrangement class for a while? Of course. Actually, Emma's painting was set to be donated to the municipal museum afterward. But wanting to make me happy, Emma readily agreed to her request. Grandma, you know. Yes? I'm not angry at Grandpa and the others anymore. Is that okay? Initially, I was taken aback by her sudden declaration. But at the same time, I resonated with Emma's thoughts. You can do as you like, Emma. Okay. Whatever feelings you have, they are yours, and who you forgive or don't forgive is up to you. Thank you. Yes, those two had already received a punishment commensurate with their deeds. I, too, should be free. I'm only 62 years old. Life is still ahead of me. Above our heads, the future was shining bright. Both of your parents are on our side. Besides, they won't be around much longer anyway. At those words, my hands froze. Seriously, are you going to do it? Do it? That sounds so sinister. It's an accident, an accident. My elder son and his wife were discussing so intently that they didn't even notice I was there. Then, the wife of my younger son said to me, "Call the police right now." At her words, I hastily called the police. My name is Kathy, and I turned 71 last month. I have spent 50 years as a homemaker with my husband. Thankfully, it's been a joyful journey. We have been blessed with 2 sons. It seems ordinary, but I think it's truly a blessing. My husband John is the second-generation owner of a small wholesale company. His father founded the company, and John took over 20 years ago. Thanks to our loyal customers, the business is thriving. Now my sons are also working for his company, each as managing directors. My elder son, Tom, graduated from a prestigious domestic university. He has always been an excellent student, earning praise from his classmates' mothers. Every time I attended a school event, I was so proud. He continued to study diligently through college and graduated with first-class honors. Afterward, he joined the company that was then managed by his grandfather as president. Although he was overly serious and had trouble interacting with women, which was a worry. About 10 years ago, he brought home a lovely woman a year his junior. From what I heard, she didn't come from a very wealthy family, but she always smiled at me and never forgot to bring a gift on my birthday. Living nearby, she would often say, "I made too much food," and bring over some of her cooking. She seemed like a smart, kind, and considerate woman. Although they haven't been blessed with children, I have always adored this couple. The problem is with my younger son. My younger son, Chris, wasn't as academically inclined as Tom. However, he was popular with girls and constantly brought different girls around during his university days. He barely passed his courses and managed to graduate. But he rebelled against joining the family business and got a job at a regular company instead. There he met Katie, a woman of the same age, and they got married. Unlike Tom's wife, Jessica, Katie was unfriendly and kept her interactions with us to a minimum. She was proper, always gave us gifts on anniversaries, and visited during long holidays. However, it seemed she preferred to keep a distance from us. She even bought an apartment in the next town over, not wanting to live too close to our home. Most of all, her detached manner of speaking made her hard to warm up to. After working for about 10 years, Chris resigned and joined my husband's company. However, his free-spirited nature, both John and Tom are having a tough time dealing with it. Even so, as a parent, I still find my sons endearing. I hope that both Tom and Chris will continue to work hard for the company in the future. One day, I went shopping alone. Spring is just around the corner. I was looking for an outfit to wear for the company's upcoming ceremony. Though I'm officially a homemaker, I'm also nominally a board member. I rarely go to the office, but I do some work from home, and preparing gifts for clients and socializing with their wives are among my duties. One of my annual duties is attending the ceremony. I headed to my favorite clothing store in the department store. That's when I saw a figure that looked familiar. Jessica. She looked similar. But no, she was walking with a man. Tom is at work. Thinking it must be someone else, I was still curious about the two of them. They entered a luxury brand store. I felt relieved. I knew I had the wrong person. Jessica is supposed to be frugal. I have never seen her with branded items before, and both Tom's and Chris's salaries are no different from ordinary executives. They probably couldn't afford luxury brands except maybe on special occasions. Tom wouldn't say so, but Chris has complained to his father several times, saying, "The pay is too low, I can't buy anything." I should have never switched jobs. With a child, Chris probably has even less financial leeway. Anyway, it's unlikely for Jessica, a full-time homemaker, to be visiting such a high-end brand store. I felt a bit silly for my misunderstanding. Finding the situation somewhat funny, I left the place. And then, our company held the ceremony. This year, we welcomed 1 mid-career hire and 3 new graduates. It's not a very large company, but we hire about this many employees every year. This year's hires were all from the countryside. And I hope they will stay with us for a long time as I watch the ceremony conclude without incident. The real issue came afterward. Heading to the president's office, I found Chris and John arguing. "Something's off, Dad. You must be up to something." Chris was red-faced and confronting John aggressively. Tom was nervously trying to calm Chris down. "What's going on?" I asked, alarmed. "The accounts are all wrong," Chris yelled. "The accounts?" I had no idea what he was talking about. I asked for more details. Chris insisted that there was something suspicious about the numbers. You're embezzling, aren't you? John shouted back. Don't be stupid. That's why these clueless second-generation presidents. What do you mean by that? The argument between John and Chris seemed to escalate. Enough. At that moment, Tom's angry voice filled the room. I'll look into the numbers. Both of you, cool it down. We shouldn't have discussions like this at the company, it could unsettle other employees. Tom said this to them. Indeed, the elder son is reliable. I was impressed by Tom's intervention. Both John and Chris fell silent at his words. Leaving it to Tom gives me peace of mind. A few days later, Tom told John. There was nothing suspicious in the books. However, there was one case of a double payment. I've contacted the party involved. And they've agreed to apply it to next month's account. It was probably that which made Chris suspicious. It's good he noticed, it helped us catch the mistake. John was impressed by Tom's words. Indeed, Tom's intelligence in handling misunderstandings is commendable. I sometimes wonder how I ended up with such an outstanding son. After the busyness of April and this parent-child fight settled down, John and I came to dinner. It had been a while since we dined just the two of us. We splurged a little, opting for a course meal at the region's top luxury French restaurant, which had earned a Michelin star. The glittering meal was a delight to behold. Soon, it'd be nice if Tom and Chris could afford to bring their families to a place like this, we should think about their salaries. I mentioned to John while enjoying our meal. Well, maybe for Tom, but it's still too soon for Chris. John replied. But Chris has 3 kids, and he keeps saying his salary is too low. If he worked as hard as Tom, I'd consider it. John said, laughing off the conversation. Oh, come on. I replied, somewhat exasperated. After enjoying all the courses, our stomachs were nearly full. The dessert will be served last, said the waiter, who then took our drink orders and left. John also seemed satisfied as he sipped his coffee. Oh, a call. I'll be right back. Hurry back, the dessert will be here soon. John checked his phone and stood up. Left alone, I sipped my coffee in the quiet room. A quiet atmosphere. I can't help but hear the voices coming from next door. Come on. The voice was loud. At the same time, it sounded familiar. Calm down. I'm just saying let's wait and see. It was Tom. The earlier voice must have been Jessica. I wondered if they were here celebrating an anniversary or something today. Realizing they were coincidentally in the next room made me happy. I decided to wait for John to return so we could greet them together. They would surely be surprised to see us here. I waited quietly for John. I hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but the familiar voices of the two were clearly audible. What good will waiting do? I didn't expect Chris to notice. Well, not just audible, their voices were quite loud. Fortunately, this room was the second to last at the back. Tom's and Jessica's voices, emanating from the deepest room, shouldn't reach anywhere but here. It's fine since it's us, but if it were someone else, it would certainly be troublesome. I thought I had to tell them to be careful. However, what I would hear next made any caution irrelevant. It's fine. Your parents are on our side. Besides, they won't be around much longer anyway. At those words, my hand stopped moving. Really, are you going to do it? Going to do it? That sounds so sinister. It's an accident, an accident. They were talking so earnestly that they didn't realize I was here, or that their voices could be heard in the next room. More importantly, the money. You can skim off more, can't you? Last time I managed to pass off the double payment, but what should I say if Chris catches on next time? I looked up and froze. I didn't want to think about it. Tom had always been so serious and trustworthy. But listening to this conversation turned my face pale. I was certain of it. The reason Chris and John had been arguing after the ceremony, it was because of these two. They had been embezzling money from the company. Trembling, I called John. But he didn't answer, maybe he was still on another call. I needed someone reliable, so I dialed again. Hello? This person answered immediately. Chris? Where are you? Can you come here now? It was my younger son, Chris. He must have sensed the urgency in my voice. He said he'd come right away and hung up. Within just 5 minutes, John arrived with Chris and his wife, Katie. It seems they met outside. Apparently, he told them I had called for them. Kathy, what's going on? Chris said you called him. John began, but I silently shushed him by placing a finger to my lips. The ice cream that had arrived while he was on the phone was already melting. I quietly pointed to the room next door. The three of them exchanged looks. They sat down quietly, and we all focused on the voices coming from the next room. I had been listening alone to the horrifying conversation while John was away. And even as time passed, they continued their discussion. The conversation was only interrupted when the waiter brought their meals. Then it resumed. The betrayal by Tom and the content of their conversation was making me feel ill. Jessica? Katie muttered softly. Now John, Chris, and Katie could hear and understand who was next door. So, use the daffodils, right? It's like those accidents where people mistake them for chives. Jessica's voice was clear. The three of them hadn't fully grasped the situation yet. At least she'll be hospitalized for a while. If we're lucky, there might even be a funeral. So, we need to make sure the embezzlement isn't discovered until then. Chris let out a soft huh in disbelief. So, we might as well wait and see, right? Tom's voice was also heard. This conversation had been repeating for a while now. No way. We can't let the money run out. Jessica responded to him. If we get caught, they won't pass the company on to me. It's impossible we'll get caught. Besides, it'll be over before that happens, right? She must have thought their conversation was serious. Katie quickly operated her phone to start the voice recorder. John remained silent, saying nothing. Chris was trembling with rage. So, using daffodils before getting caught. That's why they were planted in the garden. Yes, exactly. I've also been preparing meals and sending them over. Since they like my cooking, they won't suspect if it tastes a bit off. They'll just think I made a mistake. I understood their plans and their hidden faces all too well now. What should it be? Maybe a chive omelet? They'll need to eat plenty. I wonder how much insurance they have on them? Jessica's voice was cheery, followed by loud laughter. Knowing Dad, he's definitely got a hefty policy. Finally, I might become the president. It was worth obeying them all this time. Tom's voice was triumphant. Angered, Chris stood up. John said nothing to stop him. Stop. It was Katie who intervened. Why? I asked her, incredulously. She is unfeeling. Perhaps she feels detached because she has never had a close relationship with us. But Katie replied calmly. If we storm in now, it'll just play into their hands. They'd likely convince you guys. John and I fell silent. So what should we do? They're planning to poison Mom and Dad. Chris exclaimed. Katie responded. It's okay. I've got evidence. So please, call the police right away. I hesitated. Calling the police seemed like an extreme step. This is a clear case of embezzlement, and they are putting you two in danger. It's a crime. If we don't act, you might. Katie's words made me realize the gravity of the situation. We could be in real danger. The thought made me shudder. I hurriedly called the police. Katie spoke to the restaurant staff, arranging for them to slow down the service of the meal to prevent the two from leaving. And she also apologized for the inconvenience. Without her, Chris and John, driven by anger, might have barged into the next room, and I, drained of courage, might have let the two of them go unpunished. Soon, the sound of a police siren was heard. Katie went outside to guide the officers. She instructed us to stay in the room and wait, as we three wouldn't be able to remain calm. I could hear Katie and the police officers' voices. Then they opened their room. What is this about? Jessica's voice could be heard. Katie. And it seems they both noticed Katie. Tom, Jessica, I've listened to your conversation and thought it necessary to call the police. It would be better to discuss this at the police station to avoid causing any trouble here. Katie's voice, usually so calm, sounded incredibly reliable now. What are you talking about? We were just having a normal conversation. Exactly. Imagine what my in-laws would say if they knew about this. They seem to think Katie did this on her own. They started to protest loudly, bringing us into the argument. So, you're calling the cops on Tom just because Chris couldn't become the president? Don't take it out on him. Jessica said that. Upon hearing this, John stood up. Dad. Chris also looked at him. The confrontation was still ongoing in the next room. Let's move on. Katie said. Following that, could we ask you to come with us voluntarily? A police officer asks them. Voluntarily? No. I won't go. I haven't done anything wrong. Jessica declared. Yeah, that's right. There's no need to go. Tom's voice was also heard. Is that so? I thought you might want to give an explanation. Well, we are going to the police station now to file a complaint. Shall we go? Katie spoke calmly. She must have called the police over. It seemed like they had no intention of reflecting on their actions. Even if it's just us, we need to go to the police, I thought as I got up. I stumbled a bit. Chris supported me. Mom, are you okay? Yes. Chris had been a handful, but he had become very dependable. We left the room. In the hallway, Katie is speaking to someone in the next room, and the police are present. Probably, Tom and Jessica are further inside. Mom, are you here? Our voices must have reached Tom, who then shouted. They must have just realized we were there. His voice sounded frantic. If you want to make excuses, it might be better to come with us. Next time, the officers might come with a warrant to pick you two up. Katie continued calmly. The two of them seemed to stand up at her words. I had completely forgotten about it, but Katie had settled the bill. Thus, Tom and Jessica were taken to the police station in a police car. We followed in our car. Upon reaching the police station, Jessica, who had arrived first, was saying, "It's a misunderstanding." Tom was complaining to the police, "It's a misunderstanding by my sister-in-law." Their voices could be heard all the way outside. Another officer led us to a different room. There, I told them everything I had heard earlier. He had been embezzling company funds. And he was preparing to serve us daffodils, presumably to harm us. As I spoke, the frustration overwhelmed me and I broke down crying. The police officer was very considerate towards me. John put his arm around my shoulder. Please look into the details of the damage to the company tomorrow and file another damage report summarizing the acts of embezzlement and the amount of damage. Chris responded to the police officer's statement. What I can't forgive is their attempt to put my husband's parents in danger. Katie said firmly. I was touched that she was so angry on our behalf. The police officer explained. Since no action was taken, they cannot arrest for attempted crimes. However, it seems they could be arrested on conspiracy charges based on a recording of their conversation that Katie had made. They had actually prepared the daffodils as poison and had been providing us meals to lower our guard up until now. The photos I had taken of Jessica's cooking also turned out to be evidence. I didn't intend for them to be used like this, but it's interesting how they ended up being useful. Talking with the police and hearing Katie's voice, my sadness was gradually replaced by rising anger. They must be arrested and made to reflect on their actions. But more than that, I felt increasingly betrayed by my elder son and his wife, whom we had cherished and loved. I thought they deserved to see hell. I was terrified by my own thoughts. As a parent, thinking this way might mean I am failing. But perhaps as a parent, it's natural to feel this way. Katie and Chris decided it would be best if we didn't see Tom and Jessica. John was too angry to even consider seeing them, and I feared I might forgive them if I saw their faces. That's not true. I'm quite angry too. Yet, it's also true that I might forgive them if they apologized. We left the rest to Chris and Katie and went home. It seems that Katie's mother came to visit, and the grandchildren were left with her. That's why she told us not to worry and to rest. I was very grateful for that. The next day, the police contacted us. It seems the two of them denied everything. However, Chris quickly uncovered the facts and amounts related to the embezzlement. Unbelievably, starting from their first year of marriage, over the past 10 years, they had embezzled nearly $200,000. Taking a few thousand each month and sometimes even larger amounts. Hearing this made everything go dark before my eyes. To think I had been deceived for so long. Katie, seeing that I was incapacitated, came over to help with the household and liaise with the police. Apparently, their children continued to be looked after by her mother. I feel terrible for causing such inconvenience to my grandchildren. Chris consulted with the police and filed a criminal complaint. This would lead to at least Tom's arrest. I felt a mixture of relief and regret, but thanks to Katie, I managed not to lose myself. Additionally, both were arrested for conspiracy. The planted daffodils and Katie's recorder served as undeniable evidence. They maintained their innocence. Showing no signs of remorse, it seemed. Embezzlement is a criminal matter, and Chris has filed charges against Tom and Jessica. It turns out Jessica had been squandering the embezzled money on a nightclub. Did Tom know about this? If he did, he's a complete fool. During the trial, the bartender was called as a witness. She was flaunting because her husband was going to be the next president. I seriously had no idea the money was embezzled. And I had no feelings for her beyond that of a customer. She was just a big spender. Jessica lost her composure at his words. Shane. Didn't you say you wanted to marry me? I supported your sales, didn't I? Jessica shouted. What are you talking about, Jessica? Tom also yelled. No, seriously, give me a break. You know that's just sales talk. That's just not possible. He flatly dismissed Jessica. Good for her. I almost laughed out loud. It seems Tom was unaware of it too. Apparently, he heard that she had been sending money to her not-so-wealthy family home. Poor guy, caught by such a foolish woman. In the end, both were found guilty. Jessica ended up being publicly rejected by her beloved bartender in front of everyone. Katie and Chris were laughing out loud after the trial ended. Truly, what goes around comes around. The woman I saw in the brand store was probably Jessica. I should have realized it then, but well, all's well that ends well. The two were also charged with conspiracy. With all the evidence lined up, their excuses didn't hold up, and of course, they were found guilty. Though they received suspended sentences for the conspiracy, they were sentenced to actual prison time for embezzlement. Tom cried and apologized to me. But I no longer felt any inclination to forgive him. He was fired from the company. All insurance benefits were transferred to Chris as the beneficiary. John clearly announced that Chris would be his successor. Jobless Tom ended up divorcing Jessica while in prison. It was truly a relief that he was rid of such a woman. I have no intention of associating with Tom anymore, but the blood relation cannot be cut. The police said that relatives should support him to prevent reoffending, but Tom is an adult, and that woman is gone. Without needing to rely on his aging parents, he will surely manage to live on his own. Trust does not return so easily. I doubt I will ever trust Tom again until I die. Afterward, Chris firmly took over John's job as the successor. Katie really helped us a lot. Without her, this matter might not have been resolved. I went to Katie's house to thank her. Grandma. My grandchildren happily ran towards me. While apologizing for the mess, Katie led me into the living room, saying, I'm sorry it's so cluttered. Due to the distance, I seldom visited Chris's house. It had been a while, but the house was so tidy it didn't seem cluttered at all. I was delighted to see a picture frame displayed with a photo of our 3 grandchildren, John and me, taken some time ago. Katie, thank you so much for everything. I said as I expressed my gratitude. Oh, I haven't done anything special, just what needed to be done. Katie, as always, spoke in her usual calm and collected manner. Actually, I've always found you a bit intimidating. You don't try to get too close to us, do you? So? I muttered quietly. I was aware that you felt that way. But that's okay. Katie responded. I truly care about both of you. If I allowed my personal feelings to get involved, it might lead to uncomfortable feelings. That's why I think maintaining a certain distance is important, to sincerely care for you. Her words deeply impressed me. Jessica always tried to ingratiate herself with me, and I was deceived and fond of her because of that. But I was truly foolish not to have recognized the genuine care Katie had for us. Grandma, look. A present. My youngest grandchild, April, said as she handed me an art creation. Before you came, Mom and I made this. When I said I wanted to make a present for you, she taught me how. I cherished it deeply. Oh, April, thank you. I'm very happy. I'll treasure this. My words seemed to make April happy too. I'm glad Chris married Katie. With her around, Chris and the grandchildren will be all right. Katie, thank you truly. I look forward to continuing our relationship. As I spoke, April looked at me curiously and, catching my mood, smiled brightly.